Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gaur. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari. श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की, जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की, ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की, गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय, ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय, ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं, देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया, भगवतीरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। Reading from Canto 10, Chapter 66, text number 23 and 24. 24 is on the board. Sanityam Bhagavata Dhyana Pradhavasta Bandhana Bibhranascha Hare Rajan Swarupan Tanmayo Bhavat. Sanityam Bhagavata Dhyana Pradhavasta Bandhana Bibhranascha Hare Rajan स्वरूपं तन्मयो भवत् स नित्यं भगवदध्यान प्रदवस्थाखिलबन्धनः बिभ्राणश्च हरेराजन् स्वरूपं तन्मयो भवत्. Please recite. स नित्यं भगवदध्यान तदवस्थाखिलबन्धनः बिभ्राणश्च हरेराजन् तन्मयो भवत्. स नित्यं भगवद्ध्यान तदवस्थाखिलबन्धनः बिभ्राणश्च हरेराजन् स्वरूपं तन्मयो भवत्. स नित्यं भगवद्ध्यान तदवस्थाखिलबन्धना प्राणश्च हरेराजन् स्वरूपं तन्मयो भवत्. माताजी. स नित्य भगवत ध्यान तद्वस्थाखिलबन्धनः प्राणश्च हरेराजन् स्वरूपं तन्मयो भवत्. Word to word meaning. Saha, he, Pondrak, Nityam, constant, Bhagavat, unto the Supreme Lord, Dhyana, by his meditation, Pradhavasta, completely shattered, of Abhay Charanarvinda, Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. By constantly meditating upon the Supreme Lord, Pondrak shattered all his material bonds. Indeed, by imitating Lord Krishna's appearance, O king, he ultimately became Krishna conscious. Purport. Actually, there is one more translation before this because 23rd verse has no purport. So I'll read 23rd also, then 24th. Having thus killed envious Pondrak and his ally, Lord Krishna returned to Dwaraka. As he entered the city, the Siddhas of heaven chanted his immortal nectarian glories. This is text number 23. So text 23 is essentially Krishna killed Pondrak and Krishna returned Dwaraka. When he entered the city, Siddhas from heaven chanted Krishna's glories. Then text number 24. By constantly meditating upon the Supreme Lord, Pondrak shattered all his material bonds. Indeed, by imitating Lord Krishna's appearance, O king, he ultimately became Krishna conscious. Purport. Srila Prabhupada writes as follows in Krishna book. As far as Pondrak was concerned, somehow or other he was always thinking of Vasudeva by falsely dressing himself in that way. And therefore Pondrak achieved Sarupya, one of the 5 kinds of liberation, and was thus promoted to the Vaikuntha planets, where the devotees have the same bodily features as Vishnu, with 4 hands holding the 4 symbols. Factually, his meditation was concentrated on the Vishnu form, but because he thought himself to be Lord Vishnu, he was offensive. After being killed by Krishna, however, that offense was also mitigated. Thus, he was given Sarupya liberation and he attained the same form as the Lord. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरोन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवम् साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नित्यानन्दम् अहं नौमि सर्वानन्दकरं परम् हरिनामप्रदं देवम् अवधूतं शिरोमणिं नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नामिने गौरत्विषे नमः हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधा कान्त नमोऽस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण I seek blessings of all the Vaishnavas assembled here. It's a very interesting episode, uh, full of jokes. Um, Before Pandrak was killed, he caused lot of entertainment for Krishna and all the members of Yadu dynasty. Especially his letter was very entertaining. So if you can recall that letter, he said, I am real Vasudeva and you are imitation Vasudeva. And I warn you, if you don't return my insignia, this Shankh Chakra Gada Padma, then I am going to wage a war and finish you. And all the members in the Yadu dynasty had good laughter. He did a great, in that sense, he did a service. So that's not counted here, but it was a service. He made devotees laugh, entertained them. And of course, Krishna accepted his challenge. Krishna goes on battlefield and said, "You wanted Sudarshan Chakra? Take it." And that was the last thing he could take while being in the material body. So after that, he had no material body. We hear Krishna's unlimited grace. Here, Shukdev Goswami says that by constantly meditating upon the Supreme Lord, Pondraka shattered all his material bonds. Indeed, by imitating Lord Krishna's appearance, he ultimately became Krishna conscious. So that is the supreme grace of Supreme Lord. He, whatever is better, whether intention or action, that's what Krishna accepts. Like in our case, if a work is performed, somebody performs a work for us, some service, maybe with all good intentions, but if the end result is not good, we don't accept it. In this world, isn't it? People work in office with all good intentions to please their boss. But if the end result is not delivered, then boss is not pleased. Boss will not see what that person's intention was, isn't it? And here, even though this person's intention was not fair, because he's imitating Krishna and wanted to become Krishna, but still Krishna took the action. At least that was good part. At least he was dressing like Krishna, he was remembering Krishna, and he must be also reminding others about Krishna. Wherever he might have gone, it comes earlier that he had two plastic hands just to appear like Vasudeva. So usually we are born with two hands. He had also applied two artificial hands. So in one sense, he was making people Krishna conscious. And Krishna took that action, that he was at least becoming Krishna conscious himself and making others Krishna conscious. So that is Krishna's great mercy. He doesn't see faults in us. There was one professor in our college. He would write exam. Prem Sarupu had a subject with him. He said, I don't give you an exam to check your ignorance. I don't want to know what you don't know. I want to know what you know. I give you exam to check your knowledge. There's a difference. I mean, there were also professors who would give anything just to test our ignorance. What all we don't know. So, Krishna tests us for a purpose, and he wants to see anything good, any white spot in us. Krishna accepts it and rewards us profusely for that. That is Krishna's nature. We see earlier, Putana. Putana also came with all ill intentions. And what was Putana's good action? Sanatana Goswami says that Putana's only good action was that she dressed like a gopi and she approached Krishna, that's it. There were only two positive aspects of Putana's character. That she dressed like a gopi, that means like a devotee, and she approached Krishna. And I got so much hope from this pastime, because we also dress like devotees. And we approach altar, the deities every day. So there is some hope. If Putana could be delivered, then we have a hope. So Krishna gives these hopes intentionally, no matter who we are. But if we perform swalpam apyasya dharmasya, if we perform even little devotional service, then there is great hope. Apart from these pastimes in Bhagavatam, Ajamila's episode is another form of Krishna's profuse mercy. So all of us know Ajamila's story, that he was not a devotee, he was not doing any sadhana. In fact, he was doing sadhana of sinful activities. So Shukdev Goswami, in conclusion of Ajamila's pastime, he says very wonderful thing, and we can also learn for our Krishna consciousness, what we can do in our Krishna consciousness, how we can improve on it. So Shukdev Goswami says, Mriyamano Harer Nama. When did Ajamila chant the holy name? At the time of death. Mriyamano. Marte samay jab kiya. It's not that he was regularly doing sadhana, chanting 16 rounds, nothing like that. He just chanted at the time of death. And second is, so that means, what if somebody chants every day as a sadhana? What is going to Krishna reward that person who chants every day as a sadhana? Ajamila only chanted at the time of death. Then, Grinan Putropacharitam. He took the holy name on his tongue to address his son. He was not calling the Supreme Lord. It was not even in his meditation. At least Pondrak was meditating on the Supreme Lord. Enviously, but there was some meditation. But Ajamila was not even meditating on the Lord. The Lord was not in his mind. Who was in his mind? Putropacharitam. He was calling his son, not the Supreme Lord. But still, Krishna was so merciful. So that means, what if if somebody really addresses the Lord, there are very stalwart devotees in ISKCON who often speak about chanting. So I once heard from Sachinandan Swami Maharaj. He said, chanting is a meditation, but it's a meditation on how helpless we are and how helplessly we should cry out Krishna's holy name. So chanting should not be done like Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Chanting should be done like Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Krishna, if I don't get your mercy, I am just roasted in the material world. It's a call. ये पुकार है. Ajamila is pukaring. Ajamila is calling his son. But chanting is a call to the Supreme Lord. That's what we can learn from Ajamila's episode. So, Mriyamano Harer Nama, and we do it as a sadhana every day, calling the Supreme Lord, not just doing a formality. Chanting is not just pulling our 16 Shri Shri Nitaya Gauchanda Bhagwan ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So chanting is not to complete the 16 round and pull our counter beat one after another like that. But chanting is to call out for the grace of the Supreme Lord. Taking shelter in the holy name. Grinan Putropacharitam. And then he says, Ajamilopi Agadhama. Ajamilopi means even Ajamila went back to Godhead. So why he says even Ajamila? Because Ajamila had daily sadhana of performing certain sinful activities. So what if somebody does not perform any sins? Someone entirely refrains from sins. What will Krishna reward such a person? So that means we should also refrain from all sinful activities. And then he says, Ajamilopi Agadhama Kimuta Shraddhaya Grinan. Then what to speak of somebody who chants with faith? Because Ajamila did not chant with faith. He did not believe that if he would chant Narayana, then Vishnu Dutas would appear, or the holy name would liberate him from Yam Duta's clutches. He did not have that faith. He was not hearing glories of holy name like we hear every day after Shikshashtakam. So he had no faith. He did not have faith. He was very sinful. He chanted at the time of death and he was calling out his son. Even then Krishna is so merciful. Krishna not only released him from the clutches of Yamdutas, but Krishna gave him sufficient intelligence so he could take the right measure now. Okay, I have wasted my life so far. Let me now give it up and cultivate Krishna consciousness with full intensity. Tivrena Bhakti Yogena. So this was Ajamila's, this is what we can learn from Ajamila episode. And this is what Krishna's wonderful unlimited glory is. Krishna's wonderful unlimited mercy is. Okay. When reading this pastime, I was also thinking, although we hear Krishna's mercy so often, Krishna's compassion, but when devotees discuss it, they really feel it. I personally don't feel. I'm just speaking some information. Or you can say one analysis, an intellectual analysis. But I don't feel. And therefore, the question arises, how can we feel Krishna's mercy? And feeling means, when we feel, it means we can remember Krishna's mercy very fondly. We can experience some emotions when we talk about Krishna's compassionate nature. I feel so isolated, although I am speaking about Ajamila, I am speaking about Putana, but I feel so isolated from Krishna's nature. It appears like alien, or it appears like a story, theoretical for me. Why does that happen? Recently I was reading Srimad Bhagavatam, And Prabhupada addresses this very question in the third canto, third canto, chapter 9, text number 7. So Prabhupada says, very interesting point here. Prabhupada says that the next question is why people are against such auspicious activities as chanting and hearing the glories and pastime of the Lord, which can bring total freedom from the cares and anxieties of the material existence. So it's true that if we experience emotions about Krishna, about Krishna's merciful nature, His greatness, then we can become free from all cares and anxieties of material world. We can be in the material world, but not of the material world. We can be like a lotus flower. So Prabhupada says, why don't people take shelter of hearing and chanting if they are so auspicious, if Krishna's character is so auspicious, Krishna is such a wonderful, attractive personality, why are we not attracted? So Prabhupada says, the only answer to this question, Prabhupada himself answers, the only answer to this question is that they are unfortunate. They are unfortunate because of supernatural control due to their offensive activities performed simply for the sake of sense gratification. So basically it's offensive activities that we have performed either earlier in this life or in our past lives, which restrict us from tasting Krishna's character, Krishna's mercy, Krishna's nature. We don't taste it. We can know it, we can list it, but we don't taste it. And this is the reason, the offensive activities that we have performed in the past. So, Bhurijan Prabhu gives a beautiful explanation on this, and we'll discuss that for a while. We have some time. Just 1 second. What we can do about it and how it happens. How the offenses happen and what we can do about them. That's what we are going to discuss. So first thing is Tattva Vibhrama. This is the root cause. The root cause is that we are not aware of reality. We just forget the reality. Tattva Vibhrama. And there are 4 types of Tattva Vibhrama. Swatattva Vibhrama. We don't understand our own nature. Tattva means our constitution, our nature, our characteristics as a spirit soul. We don't understand that. And then second is Paratattva Vibhrama. We don't understand Krishna's nature also. That's another problem. Like this Pondraka, he is trying to become Krishna. One time I heard from a devotee that there was a debate among 12 persons who were claiming to be incarnation of Kalki. They were all debating on Star Plus. I did not watch that show, but it must have been a good entertainment. And they were giving reasons how they are Kalki, incarnation of Lord Vishnu. They were debating amongst themselves. So it said in scriptures that one characteristic of this incarnation is that their hands reach their knees. Ajanu lambit bhujo. So they all had done surgeries in their hands. so their hands could touch their knees when they stand. Because our hands can also touch our knee when we're sitting. But their hands could touch their knee when they would stand. And they were debating. Paratattva Vibhrama. And nor do we know how great Krishna is. When we hear about Krishna, we think must be a little more powerful than us, maybe a superhuman being. So in Bhagavatam, there is a detail that Krishna's grandfather, Ugrasena, he had something like 11 trillion bodyguards. 11 trillion bodyguards. The population of Earth today, as per statistics, is about 7.5 billion. So, it's I mean, how do we accept it? So therefore people say it's mythology. It's not possible. But if we want to know Krishna, we also have to accept his divinity in totality. Not this part and like people, Gopijan Vallabh, Krishna danced with the gopis, that is history. But Girivardhari, that is mythology. He lifted Govardhan, that's mythology. He danced with gopis, that is history. That's they don't accept Krishna in totality. And if Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, so the question is that 11 trillion people, 11 trillion were only bodyguards of Maharaja Ugrasen. Krishna himself had 16,108 queens. And each queen had 10 sons and a daughter. So Krishna himself had a large family. Ugrasen had several wives. Vasudev had several wives. So you can imagine, it must be population explosion. As per our tiny brain. That's what our tiny brain would perceive. But if Krishna is supreme personality of Godhead, and they were all living on the island of Dwarka. If you go today, Bet Dwarka, it's called Bet Dwarka nowadays. If you go to island of Dwarka, it spans probably few kilometers square, that's it. It's much smaller than even Newtown. What to speak of Kolkata or West Bengal. So, such a small, and in such a small place, such a small island, 11 trillion, 11 trillion were the number of guards, bodyguards of Maharaja Ugrasen. So if Krishna is supreme personality of Godhead, what is impossible for him? He can make 11 trillion people live on the tip of a needle. Isn't it? Why can't he do that? And if he cannot do that, then what kind of God is he? He should be able to do anything. Isn't it? So this is Paratattva Vibhrama. We really don't understand Krishna's nature, his capabilities, his potencies. And then there is Sadhya Sadhan Vibhrama. We also don't understand, I mean, we are fortunate by Srila Prabhupada's mercy that we know what is sadhana. Sadhana is, in Kali Yuga, is Shravanam Kirtanam. The primary process, Shravanam Kirtanam. And Sadhya is to become servant of the Supreme Lord. That is Sadhya, the goal. But then again, we can question ourselves how far we have realized this goal. How far are we deeply aspiring for this goal? And what is our commitment to this sadhana? So sadhana, Sadhya Sadhana Vibhrama. And the fourth is Virodhishya Vibhrama, which means bewilderment about impediments on this path, on the path of sadhana. So which means we take something favorable for devotional service to be unfavorable. And we take something favorable for devotional service to be favorable. We are not really clear what is favorable for devotional service, what is unfavorable for devotional service. Especially in the beginning stages of Krishna consciousness. This is another problem. So therefore, this problem is the basic root problem, Tattva Vibhrama. And Tattva Vibhrama means bewilderment. We are bewildered about our own identity. We are bewildered about Krishna's position. We are bewildered about the process and the goal. And we are also bewildered about what is favorable for this process and what is not favorable for that process. So this has to be first worked out. So this is the reason why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sent 6 Goswamis to write books. He could have, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could have sent them to preach all around the world just as he did himself. Isn't it? This is the reason why Prabhupada always emphasized, read my books, read my books, read my books. Prabhupada said, I have one criticism of my disciples, that they don't read my books. Isn't it? So yeah, we are chanting the holy name, but Srila Prabhupada books and that too not reading once in a blue moon, but reading them regularly keeps us grounded, keeps us free from this vibhrama, these bewilderments, and we can stay in our constitutional position. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur has said, And Hari Katha is the Swarupa of Harinam. Or in other words, Hari Katha is the life of Harinam. So definitely if somebody chants the holy name with any intention, for any reason, they'll benefit. But if we want real benefit from chanting, we must also know this tattva, sambandha gyan. We must also be clear. We should be free from these bewilderments. So Prabhupada books are so wonderful that if we just read them regularly, we can be free from tattva vibhrama. We can be situated in who we are. Now, why this is important? Because this tattva vibhrama leads to next problem. And the next problem is asat trishna. Asat trishna means hankering for temporary. Now, because if I think I am temporary, Krishna is temporary, and my senses are temporary, so let me enjoy. Asat trishna. So I hanker for temporary. Asat means temporary. Because concept is not clear, therefore my efforts will also be in a wrong direction. Asat trishna. And then this asat trishna, I am coming back to point, completing the circle. This asat trishna actually leads to aparadh, basically. So, let's say some gross asat or some subtle asat. There are two types of asat. There is some gross, tangible, like sense gratification, gross sense gratification. And there is subtle like name, fame, glorification. That's also asat. Now, if I want asat, there is so much competition for the asat. And I will inevitably offend others in acquiring my asat. Because for asat, there is competition. तो उसके लिए झगड़ा होगा. And if there is झगड़ा, if there is competition for asat, what will it result in? Offense, aparadh. And as Prabhupada said, I read from 397, as Prabhupada said, this is due to supernatural control. Supernatural control due to their offensive activities. For sake of sense gratification. So sake of sense gratification is asat trishna, and offensive activities aparadh. So aparadhas are caused by asat trishna. When we hanker for temporary, we commit offenses. When we commit offenses, Prabhupada said, we don't feel, we don't taste Krishna consciousness, we feel dry, we feel disconnected, we feel isolated, just as I feel, like that. So then, what is the solution? What to do? The solution is that we, first solution, of course, I have already discussed, that we read Srila Prabhupada books. I was very fortunate, although I confess that I have also not been reading Prabhupada books. I read when I teach. But we should regularly read. I am not a good example. But I was very fortunate when I joined Krishna consciousness, right when I was in first year, and we were having a camp. One, I think, Utkarsha camp Utkarsha camp. And I was fortunate that in that camp, there's one devotee, even brahmachari, he spoke in Bhagavatam in one class. He said Srila Prabhupada was interviewed because Prabhupada used to produce 8 to 10 books every year. Prolific writer. And usually a good writer produces 1 or 2 books in a year. A good author. But Prabhupada used to produce 9, 10, sometimes even 15 books every year. So this reporter asked, Swamiji, how do you write so many books? Prabhupada said, I don't write these books. Krishna writes these books. So reporter was bewildered. He was holding his pen and his jaw dropped. Kya bol rahe bhai? And he was looking at Prabhupada, if this statement can be recorded and published. because it is to be published. So he was actually looking at Prabhupada, questioning him, are you serious? Are you serious in making statement that Krishna writes his books? So he was looking for an explanation. Prabhupada's secretary interrupted. Prabhupada's secretary said, Prabhupada wants to say that Krishna inspires him to write the books. Then Prabhupada interrupted. He said, when I am saying Krishna writes his books, that means Krishna writes his books. Why do you misinterpret? He very mildly admonished his secretary. So I heard this. I was in first year and I did not have so much faith. So I thought these ISKCON people were too audacious. And because they want to promote their books, they're speaking this way. Then, as I said, I was fortunate. What was I fortunate in? Same day, evening, I was fortunate to meet one devotee. He was a devotee from NIT Warangal. I forget Prabhuji's name now. He showed me one book. It was in Telugu language. Coming back, again, we can recognize by cover, but it was in Telugu language. Coming back. And he showed me the book. He turned the first page, the cover, and there was one stamp also in Telugu language. So I asked him what that stamp was. He said it's a branch of Sri Vaishnavas. They recommend their followers, their disciples to read these books. I said, why they recommend their followers to read Srila Prabhupada's books? So he said, in the dream of one of the acharyas of Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, Krishna appeared. Krishna appeared in the dream of one of the acharyas in Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya and told this acharya that the books that are written in the name of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, I write these books. Srila Prabhupada ki. I write these books and you recommend your disciples and followers to read those books. So therefore, reading these books, so therefore what we think Prabhupada is speaking to us is actually Krishna speaking to us through the pure, transparent medium of Srila Prabhupada. Because Prabhupada is so surrendered to Krishna, Krishna speaks through him. And therefore, Prabhupada used to himself read his books. Prabhupada says in one conversation, very popular, Prabhupada said, do you know why I read my books? Is there any author who reads their own books? So Prabhupada said, I read these books because these books are so transcendental. Then he said, if somebody reads one page, his life is perfect. Somebody reads one shloka, one word, their life is perfect. Of course, the perfection will take time. If you just read one word, you might think, okay, reading one word is good enough. But of course, again, something is better than nothing. So Tattva Vibhrama is countered by reading Srila Prabhupada books. Then I also thought of some other ways that we can experience Krishna's mercy in our life. So by reading Prabhupada books, we understand the things for what they are, for what the things they actually are. There's one disciple who asked his guru, "Hey Gurudev, give me a mantra by which I can realize my Swarupa, my Siddha Pranali mantra." So his guru gave them Hare Krishna Mahamantra and said, "This is the topmost secret." So the disciple liked the mantra. What was the mantra? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. But when he went outside the ashram, he saw the rickshawala was chanting Hare Krishna. The washerman Dhobi was also chanting Hare Krishna. And little girls were playing with the stone, Pithu. They were also chanting Hare Krishna. So he went back to his guru and said, "Guru Maharaj, what kind of secret is this? Rickshawala knows this, Dhobi knows this, even little girls who play in the street, they also know this mantra. What kind of mantra? What kind of secret is this?" So his Gurudev gave him a raw diamond, which was worth millions. And he said, "Go and try to exchange this diamond with the people you met." So first he went to the rickshawala. Said, "This is a diamond. and how much you will pay me for this? So रिक्शा वाला बोला कि आपको 10 रुपए दे देंगे. Only 10 rupees. बोले हाँ, कभी कभी रिक्शे की चेन उतर जाती है तो उसमें मार के ठोकने के काम आ जाएगा, और क्या करेंगे इसका. So the man went next to the dhobi and said, this is a diamond, precious diamond, how much you will pay for it? Dhobi said, sometimes I forget my beating stone, because clothes are beaten with the stone to clean them. So I can use this for cleaning my clothes, for beating my clothes. I'll give you 5 rupees for this. So I said, no way. Then he went to the girls who were playing in the street, and he showed them how much you pay for it. They said, we will not pay anything. If you want to give us, we'll play with it. So then man went back to his guru and explained what had taken place. So the guru said, you see, no one really understands the value of diamond. It takes an expert eye, an educated eye, to know the real value of diamond. Similarly, this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra may be open secret, but rarely anyone understands its value. So then it clicked to the disciple, yes, it's a top secret. Siddha Pranali Mantra that can reveal our Swarupa. So my point was that these things become clear when we read Srila Prabhupada books over and over again. So it's not that how much we know from Srila Prabhupada books. It's a question of what is in our back of mind in our day-to-day life. Prabhupada says in one of the letters, he says that you can very easily make your spiritual advancement if you can meditate on what I write for 1 to 2 hours every day. Prabhupada says, if you meditate on what I write for 1 to 2 hours every day, you can very easily make spiritual advancement. So it's not a question of information, it's a question of meditation. Okay, we have read Prabhupada books, but if it is just a formality and tick mark, some sadhana card, okay, that's good in the beginning. It's a good step. But then, how is it affecting my life? Mananam. Mananam is meditation. So, reading is one thing, then our contemplation, and that how is that contemplation bringing a change in my life? That will remove our tattva vibhrama and asat trishna later on. And then second thing that can help us in tasting Krishna consciousness is cultivating gratitude. Gratitude is antidote for offensive mentality. Because no matter what happens in this world, we can always find a reason to complain. Isn't it? So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, satisfaction is the greatest wealth. And a person cannot be satisfied if that person is in acting in Rajoguna. Because there are always things better than that we have. There are always circumstances we can imagine in a better way. There are always we can imagine better people around us. So there will always be some reason to complain. But cultivating gratitude means we think, we meditate on what we have got, what we have received, counting our blessings. So like Vasudev has written this song, Yadi gaur na hoi to tabe ki hoi to. So meditating on, if this person were not in my life, what would have been my life? If this devotee would not have been in my life, what would have been my life? If this facility, this thing that had not been in my life, what would have been my life? So making theoretically absence of something and then calculating what would be my life minus this person and this thing or this facility or whatever. So cultivating gratitude is one way we can counter offensive mentality. We can overcome offenses. And of course, reading Prabhupada books, we'll also learn about offenses and nectar of devotion. Srila Prabhupada talks about offenses in great detail. So Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about it in 4.10. What's that shloka? Vitaraga bhaya krodha manmaya mamupashrita bahavo jnana tapasa puta mad bhavam agata. So Krishna says, Vit means giving up. Giving up raga, attachment, bhaya, fear, and krodha, anger or aversion. Giving up fear, anger, and aversion, many people have attained my shelter. Man maya mamupashrita. Now he's saying, attain my shelter. Saying, giving up fear, anger, and attachment, come to my shelter. Which means these are obstacles in attaining Krishna's shelter. Raga, bhaya, krodha. These are obstacles. Then what is the solution? He said, in past also, bahavo jnana tapasa, in past also many people have become purified. Puta. Puta means purified. Mad bhavam agata. But how have they become purified? Jnana tapasa. And what is this jnana tapasa? Jnana tapasa is actually gratitude. कि ज्ञान की तपस्या, वो ज्ञान की तपस्या क्या है? ज्ञान की तपस्या ये है, वो ज्ञान कि मेरे लिए कितना किया जा रहा है, मुझे कितना दिया जा रहा है. I am recipient of so much. That knowledge. I am recipient of so much and from so many devotees and so many living entities. Right from the mother, father, and so many other, and but to speak of devotees and spiritual master. So I am recipient of so much mercy. To have, to cultivate this jnana, it's a tapasya, it's an austerity. Because we can always have some complaint. So therefore, says, with this tapasya, with this jnana tapsa, many in the past have become purified. Which means many have overcome fear, attachment, and aversion. Which is cause of offenses, basically. So cultivating gratitude is a very powerful tool to overcome offensive mentality. And then last is, and I'll complete with this. Last is, of course, gratitude is not just to say thank you, but gratitude is expressed in terms of service. So serve Vaishnavas, Vaishnav Seva. By Vaishnavas, Vaishnav Seva, as Bhakti Vinod Thakur says, what's that song? Gurudev Kripa Bindu Diya Sakale Sammana Korite Shakati Dehonatha Jatha Jatha Tabe to Gaibo Harinama Sukhe Aparadha Habe Hata. So Aparadha Habe Hata. Again, the offenses are overcome by service. So by service to Vaishnavas, we receive their blessings, and then we can overcome offenses. It's an ocean that within us, we may think that in last 10 days I have not committed any offense, or in last 10 years. But the fact that we are unable to taste Krishna consciousness, we are definitely affected by an offensive mentality. And that offensive mentality, as we discuss, can be overcome by these three methods. So I'll summarize quickly. First, we discussed about Pondraka and how Krishna, Putna, and Ajamila received the mercy of Krishna. It's oceanic mercy. Krishna is Karuna Sindhu. But then why don't we experience and taste that mercy, even though we read it, we know it theoretically? I am repeating it, but why don't I experience and taste it? So we read from Prabhupada's purport 397, it's due to offensive activities performed for the sake of sense gratification. So we went back to the analysis from Japa book, that it starts with Tattva Vibhrama, bewilderment about the science of Krishna consciousness, the constituents, and Tattva Vibhrama leads to Asat Trishna, hankering for temporary. Asat Trishna leads to offensive mentality, aparadh. And then we discuss how to overcome aparadh. First is we read properly everything, assimilate in right knowledge from right source, from Srila Prabhupada books. So we learn about offenses, we learn about the glories of the spiritual objects as they are, Then second I discussed was cultivating gratitude. With gratitude, we can overcome fear, attachment, and aversion, become purified, and attain Krishna's shelter. And last is gratitude is not just spoken, but it is expressed in terms of service. So when we serve Vaishnavas, we also overcome offensive mentality with their blessings, and we can taste real Krishna consciousness. I'll just icing on the cake, just last statement. I was hearing Radhanath Maharaj's lecture recently, and it was a very illuminating statement and at the same time very frightening. Parallelly, Maharaj said, as soon as you forget, you are servant of everyone. And I can take it for my personal application. As soon as I forget, I am servant of the person in front of me. Maya said, you are in clutch of Maya. Already in clutch of Maya. As soon as you forget. When it's a very heavy statement, but very nice meditation in our personal interactions with the devotees and during our services. It's a very nice meditation. We should always remember that we are servant of servant, because as soon as we forget, we're in Maya. So with this humble words, repetition from different sources, I seek your blessings and any corrections, questions. Hare Krishna. Yes, Hari Om Prabhu.
The beginning, Hare Krishna Prabhuji. In the beginning, you were mentioning that Krishna accepts whatever is good in our intentions and actions. But at the same time, we know that Krishna is Bhavagrahi. He accepts our intentions. And like many things we read in the scriptures, like when we are chanting, if chanting is devoid of service attitude, it won't have any effect. And there are so many things like that. So then these two things seem to be contradictory. How to understand?
Yeah, I spoke that statement to highlight Krishna's oceanic compassion. Krishna takes whatever is better part. So like in this case of Pondraka, is no good intention, no bhava, isn't it? But still Krishna accepted his service, is remembering Krishna and reminding others of Krishna. You know? And another example I gave was Ajamila. No good intention, but at least action was good. So Krishna takes better part of us. Of course, as a sadhaka, we must be good in intention and good in our actions. But when we talk about Krishna's unparalleled mercy, then we can only say that Krishna accepts the better part. Putana came with ill intention, but she dressed like a gopi and she approached Krishna. Krishna accepted only that activity, although intentions were very poor. For personal application, yes, both are important. Actions and intentions both are important. But even in the two, intention is more important for us, for sadhakas. Isn't it? Does that help? Okay. So it's Krishna's nature, he takes the better part. I mean, isn't it? Like Prabhupada said, if you, Prabhupada has many times given such statements. Prabhupada said, anybody who is mission of publishing Chaitanya Charitamrita, I'll personally take him back to Godhead. Now, their intentions don't matter. Just do it. Prabhupada is giving a blank check. Somebody just did it, no matter what intention, Prabhupada will take back to Godhead. That's Prabhupada's mercy. But from our side, we should act and think in a way that we can attract that mercy. Isn't it? So, as we say now, advancement in Krishna consciousness depends on the attitude of the follower. So, if we think, okay, Krishna is very merciful, no, my intention or action, whatever, he'll take the better part of it, then it's a wrong attitude. कि चलो ठीक है, एक्शन गलत कर सकते हैं क्योंकि इंटेंशन तो अच्छी है. That's like abusing Krishna's compassion. It's a wrong attitude. You understand that point? I give another example. For example, somebody says that by chanting Hare Krishna, heart becomes purified, and ultimately we become averse to sinful activities. So if I am going to become averse to sinful activities, let me do sinful activities now. I am also doing Shravan Kirtan simultaneously, and eventually I will become averse. But now I have attraction. So let me also engage in sin and do my Shravan Kirtan, and eventually I'll become purified. Yeah, it is true, but that attitude is wrong. The attitude behind this thought, that's wrong. So point is right attitude. Right it means right intention. And then if actions are plus minus with best intentions, Krishna will mercifully accommodate it. That's my understanding. Maybe Prem Surabhu, would you like to add comment? Anant Bhavan, you want to say something? Any other devotee wants to add or say something? I shared my understanding. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Granthiraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki, और प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि.